Good morning, everyone. As you can see, I'm sure what you're looking at already on your chart. You can see mine. That report added more fuel to the downside. And you always do, where price is relative to support. And there isn't a lot here, but nonetheless, you see where the futures are. They're coming down to this low from 3.3. And I don't think they'll stop going down until they reach there. And more likely, move below it before it starts to bounce. Now, what are the pluses? What are the minuses? What are we potentially going to trade? Well, we always look for extreme moves intraday that prices might bounce from that we can profit from for a counter trend trade. We also want to look at how they came down. And what we see here, right, the minus is that we had this slop for a few days and there was an attempt to hold this level before. There was a nice rally there. And so this is, I make the analogy, was refilling the tank. So all of this accumulation of chop back and forth potentially adds to supply to drive it down. That doesn't mean it won't bounce today. I think it probably will. Where it bounces from, we'll have to see when we look at some kind of price action that supports a bias that it could bounce. Right now, as you can see, it tried to hold here, and that report came out, and it nosedive and continuing to move lower. Um, Now, we always look at something from the point of view what others are thinking, and traders that would have maybe shorted here or thinking to buy are going to either cover shorts down there or start to accumulate down there. Whether, who's right and who's wrong at the comes after we see the price action and what occurs from there. What we do know is when prices move too far, too fast, they bounce, similar to here, right? It nosedive and then made that little rally. So that's the thinking behind that. Right now, you can see the futures are moving down. And until they reach some support area, we're not interested in thinking counter trend. And then they've moved too far. And so you might think, well, why don't we just short it? Well, where are you going to put your stop? There's no reference point there. That's the whole idea behind a void. There's no place to put a stop or trade against. And something abnormal could happen, like some other report comes out and, it rips back in your face and you get stopped out at the worst time and then it goes back down again. So, yeah, don't chase. All right. So, SPY, we see where it is. It's coming down near this prior low. It's down there. And, as I'm looking at this and where the futures were, like, geez, the futures aren't already down there, the same as this. So is that a little complacency or some early buying? There was no sign of early buying on the chart. I'm looking at some other screen. It is going sideways on a 2-minute chart. There was a little bottoming tail down there on the 2-minute chart. Let me show you. That's what I'm talking about right there. So there was a little shakeout, right as it came down to that low. And now it's going sideways. And you know what that tells you? And I'm if you've been trading again, of course, for a while, and you've been with us in the chat room or any presentation that we do, it's all about looking to the left. And as a professional trader, as much as possible, we're humans, we're not computers. You got to put the emotions aside and say, you know what? It fell really far. It's on a support level. There's going to be buyers there. And then you look for evidence of that. And there's the evidence of that little shakeout that buyers stepped up. There were bids right down at that low. What I also see is after, these are 2-minute bars, after 10 minutes or so, it hasn't lifted up. which means supply keeps coming. Now, a breakout trader would buy above here looking for it to go up. Right now, it's not, you can see it's unable to go up. And so now that it's created this support, and this is would be my thought process in the moment, watching this, is that if this spikes down there and flips back up again, go long. That would confirm that level, additional buying. It's already confirmed by that bar, but there would be confirmation in the moment. Right? So as prices are coming down and you look over to the left, you see initial confirmation. Now, if a double confirmation or a retest and reversal, as we call it, right, would add to that, and getting above that would be go ahead, go buy, and let's see what it does from there. Of course, it could just go, as it goes sideways, you go back to that analogy of refilling the tank. Something comes down to a support level, you get a bar like that, and it can't go up and it starts diving again, it becomes a little tricky as far as a continuation pattern. It's not a good spot to do a continuation pattern. The other side of this, we apply bar by bar analysis to this is, well, what if it takes this out and it doesn't give me that kind of little retest and reversal, which would increase the odds dramatically of a long counter trend trade. But say it's going sideways like this is not a good setup really to go all in as a long 100%. But what if it pops up and comes right back down again with its downside upside shakeout? So you can see how, you can utilize bar by bar to give you information as to what's happened in the moment in alignment with what's happened in the past. That's really the powerful part of utilizing that, because as pattern traders, we're looking for evidence of our bias, and our bias as it relates to the time frames that we're using. So here we're talking about something very short term. Right? Intermediate term, what we see here is this big topping pattern, and it held this level, which was at that level. And from a daily chart time frame, it's like, what is this going to look like at the end of the day? Of course, that's the unknown. Right? Is it a red bar closing down here, which would be very bearish? Or is it another bottoming tail bar, which still would, we got this mess to deal with, but we're constantly reevaluating what's happening to reach a point that says, hey, I've got a trade set up in the time frame that I am focused on. All right, let's continue. Put this on like that. So you can see on the 15-minute chart, there would be no reason to do anything. And it's still just one bar down, 2 bars down. It's on support. And whether it holds or not, we'll see. At SPX, things are moving, it's about where it was. So again, I was mentioning in the green room a few minutes ago that they're pricing in a crash or, insurance. And so someone is willing to buy put options at 65.20. That's the activity right now. What we look at what they're pricing in as what is an extreme today. And the probability of going down there, of course, every credit spread type of trade is a probability, like any trade. Is it likely to go down there? And you know what? There's a lot of margin involved, but pricing that in down there, of course, no way. But pricing in down there, right? Like if the spiders had enough premium down at this level, right? And we could look at that, as the market opens. If they had pricing at that level below the 200 MA, sell a naked spider. And you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. And because it ain't going down there today. It's just you got this level, and this for anybody interested in what a void is, that's a void. So if buyers don't come to the rescue in a meaningful way in the next few days, this becomes a real possibility. And of course, everybody's speculating on this war. And I was not kind of, I was curious today as to, you know, everybody is, every war is different, of course, but history repeats itself. And, we're hearing like this is going to be a short-term thing. Yeah, 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 right. Okay. Yeah, technology has evolved and so on and so forth. But I went and I asked AI, how long were these last two wars, Vietnam and Afghanistan? 20 effing years, both of them. Let's hope we're not in for that. Um, we don't know, but this may not be over so quickly. Nonetheless, the stock market is a place that's totally focused on money. That's all it is. And you know what? If it moves too far too fast, there's going to be buyers. Where is it where it moves too far too fast? Look to the left. And if there's nothing to the left, that opens up the door to a significant move. All right, let's look at other markets. All right. So the Qs are holding up amazingly well. Here's the futures, and that's a positive sign. But this is like refueling. Will it hold these this lows here? I don't know. I don't know. But look at this 65-minute chart. There's a low there, and there's a low there. And the way this is coming down and went sideways here, I'm looking at that and saying to myself, it may stall there. But as a counter trend trade, I'd like it to be way down here. The further it moves, the better. And you know what? As a counter trend trade, that's what I'm kind of hoping for. It collapses and comes all the way down there and then begins to stabilize. And of course, we'll look to see what's to the left, and maybe a trader pivot line will line up with that today. The more things that come into alignment with each other, subjective things as well as looking to the left, actual price support or resistance, the better the probability that prices are going to make a turn there. Then you look at the pattern. Like I said, bar by bar analysis. Yeah, well, Trump says a lot of things. That's where the taco trade was based on. All right, let's look at the other futures markets here. Yeah, YM has been the weakest. There's no, and I'm just talking out loud here, and futures markets are not the primary market, meaning what the majority are looking at. But I look at that and I think to myself, there's no way that's going to stop going down until it reaches the 200 MA, which is the red line, which is in the futures anyway, lined up with a whole number. So that's a good spot, even though there isn't a lot to the left. There's some overlapping opens and closes there. And so in a smaller time frame, there's going to be some kind of a consolidation that occurred in November of 2025. Right? Now, I look at the diamonds, which are a representation of, and you see where the 200 is. It's still with that price activity, but this is only down there, and that's why you got to look at the underlying to really look at where subjective things like moving averages are. And this 20 MA is the equal to the 100 on the daily, and it's already below that. Okay. So this has got a void, and that may be where it's headed over the coming days and weeks, down to that 200 MA. Unless there's a big recovery, that's the thinking at this point. Now that this attempt to hold here is failing, and I'll repeat, today is far from over. All right, let me continue. And where's my Russell? Look at the size of this consolidation and these days and this breakdown. You've got a low there, right? 2,500. I don't think buyers show up until it gets down there, right? And you've got these pivot lows. You have to look at the underlying, and why is it stabilized? Who knows, right? Why buyers show up there? Maybe there's something there. Anyway, Yeah, 250. There's an unfilled gap down there. You want to mark that off and set an alert. You may not be watching that, but coming down there is something you want to be aware of. So keep an eye on that. Um, I'm just going to look at this quickly just to mention. Have your alert set. You got the VIX is already up there near those prior highs. So that could be one piece of information to support maybe a short-term reversal. Um, thank you, Alex. Alex is making us aware that the S2 line is at 250 and change. All right, so, okay, this is already up near the prior highs. And of course, that makes me think, could we be in for something much more significant? Maybe. When I look at where support is on the Dow, it's not so far away on some of the others, but if the Qs start to fail and the S&Ps, get through into that void, yeah. All right, let's look at Bitcoin, which has been doing great, relatively speaking, and there's money coming out of that. Of course, this is what I call being a victim of the market, where patterns like this that look great initially begin to fail. I'll repeat, bar by bar analysis. It's one of the most powerful things and I didn't come up with that idea years ago as it relates to how we use it today. We still use it the same way to monitor when we're in a trade, but it was more to control my own emotions as to, oh my God, it's a red bar. Well, put it in the context of what happened. Is the bar done? So if this was to turn into a bottoming tail bar, I think that would rip to the upside afterwards. Now, crude oil is rocketing. Looks like it won't stop. I'm thinking until it reaches $90, a whole number. And there's nothing at $90. That's why some are speculating on 100, but that's just speculation. All right. Fill your carb now, or yeah. Gold is up. Not really doing much of anything. Silver, not doing much of anything. So, they're not saying, oh my God, I better get into gold here, with this idea of the market, they're pricing in crashes. Um, yeah, interest rates, they're at a turning point. This is bonds. And so this is coming down to the 200 MA, and we'll see if it can make the turn here. And you can see it popped up, came back down again. But, having come up there, down to here, it's where I would speculate it begins to stabilize. And of course, speculation isn't a trade. It's just, hey, watch this where it is. Um, that aside, we'll see how things do, like software. I suspect this is going to get sold off. You can see where it's at. It's gapping down, but it's making a bottom. So some kind of retest. When you have days like this, even what's strong, like MRVL, which is gapping up, traders are going to back away just as a risk off type of situation. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. As we're chatting here, I'm watching the news on the ship, and it says Qatar energy minister predicting oil is going to go to 150 a barrel. That's would be fun. Talking about that, what it's over 80. Um, jets got hurt, cruise lines, hotels. Oh, look at Marriott's actually holding strong. Alarms NLR. I don't see anything there. HL, we stopped out of that yesterday. I think I lost my pre-market here. Yep. Coin. Coin down. Our stop was yesterday's low, so let's just move it to a 5-minute low to book our gains. Microsoft down. We only have one open position in the weekly options trader. We did a great job taking all of our profits into strength. So we are in this one. And it looks like it's fine though. Expires today. Have a nice open gain. GDYN, I know this was an earnings stock. I had set an alarm up here. Looks like it went off, but bottoming pattern. So if this can recover, that's why I had an alarm at 7:35. See that? 15-minute chart. So if it gaps to 7:35, then ideally it'll chop around within the range, and then we could buy a 30-minute high. OPRX, that must be another earnings. Why did I don't see anything interesting there, so forget about it. Cream. Cream, I have an alarm at 202 and change. If it gets up there, then like that as a put spread. Yep, today's Friday, so 0 DTE day. ADP. Beautiful little closing breakout, inverse head and shoulders. Climo on the weekly. We've been having a lot of patterns like that this week. It's gapping down, which I like. I love this. I love a pattern like this that is bullish, closing breakout, gaps down a little bit. And then if it's able to recover in a weak market, then that's relative strength and it's good to go. So my alarms are always early. I have an alarm. Let's see, where's my alarm? I'm going to set it at 2:22:50. That will give me time to post an official and see what the market's doing. And those are all my alarms. So let's now look at a couple of earnings stocks here and other news. Costco wasn't earnings, but it's, I think, same store sales or whatever they come out with every month, something with inventory. I don't know. But that's a call spread watch, maybe 30-minute low. And we would be looking to do next week about the 1020 strike. GCO gapping up 30. So it's gapping to the top of the range. Nothing to do right now, but let's see what it does in the first 30, 60 minutes. Kins gapping to 17. Same. See what it does. Stephen Joby. Would it be a watch? That's a pattern that it's a watch for long or short. It's an attempted bottoming pattern that got rejected. See, that was a breakout. This was another attempt to hold, and I got 3 bearish inside bars. So when you see things like that, you got to ask, do I have a setup and a trigger to go long on something like this? I would want to see a downside shakeout and then bullish something something bar, I call them. Because as of right now, it's bearish consolidation and a downtrend. And so as a short, it has room to fall to the low 8s. See? So that's my answer. I'm sure it's a pattern that you can potentially trade up or down when you get the trigger. Kins, I mentioned gap 2450. That's a nasty gap, but it actually might be excessive 30-minute high to do a 0 DTE put spread. Coup gapping down 30 minutes. There's support over here though, bouncing back, but maybe 30-minute low. No, there's that UPREX. All right, so now it gave it up. I'm gonna delete you now. Ingum, that's a nasty gap. Look at that. My horizontal line there, 22. That's a Bear Island reversal, gapping under all three of those bars, but what, I don't know what to do with it. XOM, 153. Yeah, it's bullish pre-market. So, day trade, just buying an entry. I kind of just throw out a default of 30-minute high many times because I want to see how it holds up here for 30 minutes. If it can hold up here and stay above 152, let's call it, then that's bullish consolidation. You can buy a 30-minute high, provided it's not extended. This one is earnings gapping to 166, so it's gapping up $6. I wish it was gapping up more, like 175. Then I would say a 0 DTE gap and crap. Because this is bullish. That was a closing breakout. That was an igniting gap. And look at these 6 consecutive bars. So I would not be looking to short that, but maybe 30-minute low. There's Marvel gapping up here to 85. So that's a pro gap right there. That was a nasty red closing breakdown on volume yesterday under all 3 moving averages. And now it's gapping over, what was that, Monday? Monday's pivot, the high. That's a pro gap. So this is a candidate for 0 DTE, maybe 7 DTE, and also directional once I am comfortable with a 5-minute pattern. As a swing trade, I think it's going to $90. That's my that's my prediction. If we buy it, it's a gapping at the top of the range, and here's my void. So that I have in this middle window. GWE is in the bottom right. IoT gap. Now that one I like too. That one I like. So I'm actually I'm on my laptop. So I got limited space of thumbnails. So I'm putting my 2 favorites right here, Marvel and IoT. I always have spiders up the road. And one more to go. No pattern. Okay, so those are all the earnings. Honeywell, Alex, you mentioned, yep, that's a top. You could do a call spread, that's a void, short 5-minute low, 2-minute low, whatever you want. So, whether it's a day trade or swing. Hey, ADP. Yeah, Google, I like short ADP. Look, ADP, look. I mean, ideally, I would have chopped around. But let's buy 5-minute high. Stop Wednesday's low. Because I don't like trading in the first 5 minutes. But this looks good. Remember, I was going to post it yesterday, but we were waiting for the numbers. All right, so that's good. Guggenheimer. It's bouncing here. 30-minute low I like on Guggenheimer. or whatever, 5, 10, 15, 30, scale into it, make sure the cues aren't bouncing, make sure the cues have not turned bullish. And as of right now, no, they haven't turned bullish, but so let's also check. Yeah, I need more thumbnails. Um, so here I'll just set an alarm 295. Goog. There's Guggenheimer. Microsoft. All right, we're in this. We got a put spread. Let me set a new alarm for M4 405.
Netflix is holding up well. That might be a zero DTE 10.
Sure. The Marble, look at Marble going. You want you want to do a put spread on this? What's up? I don't.
I'm looking at a 5-minute chart, so yeah, I'm
Here,
just talking.
look at Marvel. I'd rather do. That's a pro gap, but it's run too much for directional. I mean, it's probably going to be spready, but let me take a look. Yeah, Marvel. That's that's one of my two favorites, as we talked about. 83 puts for today, 39 by 63. So that's spready, and I don't know. But yeah, that's a pro gap. Or how about this IoT? Nah, it's getting far from the 20. I don't like the reward to risk. All right, Microsoft up alarm again. Let's tighten the stop under 405. Hey, that's where Debbie lives in California off the 405. All right, one more minute to go, and then we can look at setting ADP alarm or a buy stop if you're so inclined. ADP. All right, perfect, perfect. You see how the 5-minute high? Let's just say hypothetically this thing now goes to crap and falls $10. That 5-minute high would have saved us from not getting sucked into it. But I still like it 5-minute high, so that would be 223.95. Alarm set. Breeze, I had low alarm, but that looks fantastic. That's relative strength. Look at that 1, 2, 3 that we bought yesterday, you all. That Sam found us this amazing setup. Set a low alarm at $20. See, not bad. 15 is sloppy. I prefer 30-minute high, but looks good. I think I have that on my list from yesterday. But Spider's new low, you can see upper right. So how is ITA doing? LMT is better than ITA, the sector. And Daku, where's our stop? 47.39.
Amazon's the only mag that's holding so far. I mean, Microsoft is, but it's reversing the 5-minute bar. Amazon's setting up a 1-2-3 after the gap down.
We have fairly light inventory in the advisory too. Now, relative strength. Bought that yesterday. 17. I gave the next 1/3 target around the 50 MA there. XPO, all right, that's a breakout failure now. XPO. We did a half lot. E6. Yep, so that's out. Shoot.
The diamonds are into an unfilled gap from December. Stabilized, but not taking out any prior bars high yet. Qs continue to hold up the best. Plenty of room to go down if that's in the cards. . the reward to risk isn't there, but I think if it takes out the opening high there, the Q's futures would go up to that S1 line and they get sold into, because that's where traders want to sell us. The day of the gap is, let me find it again. Diamond. It's a little
IoT here.
tiny little gap there. It gapped up on November 26th.
Looks like AEO, Stephen, is a magnet to the 200.
Yeah, tiny.
Yeah, Microsoft could have been a 0 DTE here if there was
Yeah,
anything
Microsoft
recorded.
doing good.
Yeah, that's our